We know there are many choices in internet radio, and the staff and host of LA Talk Live would like to thank you for choosing the internet's hottest destination for the most eclectic sound and invigorating talk. This is LA Talk Live. We are more than just talk.
All right, good evening. Welcome to WDC Radio. I'm your host, I am WDC. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at I am WDC. If you want more information about sickle cell trait, you can go to www.wdconsct.org. Man, I got it's a very informative show for you today. A lot of our community, we don't realize that there are other red blood cell conditions, hemoglobinopathies out there, and especially in our sickle cell community, there's so many different forms of sickle cell disease that today we're going to highlight one that's kind of common in our community, actually, the C trait. And so we're going to talk about that. I was going to have Dr. Bailey on, but Dr. Bailey is actually, please say some prayers for her. She actually went to the hospital. She was in a crisis this afternoon, and she tried her best to hold off and be on the show with us today, but she had to take care of her health. So she's not going to be able to call in, so I'm going to hold it down. She's my expert, so she was going to actually talk about the C trait in more detail. I'll give you like the basic information about it, and then if you have more questions, you can contact me, WDCONSCD, and I'll take that back, WDCONSCD@gmail.com. You can send me an email there and ask some questions there if you have any additional questions. So again, this is WDC Radio. This is for our sickle cell community. I have sickle cell trait. There's a 1 in 4 chance that you can have a child with sickle cell disease if you and your mate have sickle cell trait. A lot of things so many different aspects of that conversation. Again, I want to make sure that people have not just conversations about sickle cell trait, but other genes. You have sickle cell, you have thalassemia, hemoglobin C, D trait, Monroe, OARAB. There's so many different genes that when come in contact with sickle cell in that baby is a form of sickle cell disease. So as I mentioned to you, we're going to highlight today, first half of the show, sickle cell. We're going to highlight the C trait. I have a very special guest here who's going to talk about her experience with C trait, her son's experience with C trait, and you'll see next to her will be my man KC, who's going to also interject in the conversation. But the second half will be talking with him specifically, being a male living with sickle cell SC, in his life experience around that. So again, if you have any questions, you can call in 323-473-3100. If you have any questions, my man Van Eric will let me know that you're on the line, and I'll bring you on the call. So with no further ado, let's get this show started. This has been we talked about this, Esperanza, about maybe a month or two ago. You were sharing with me about the C trait. So introduce yourself to the listeners and make sure you got that mic up there for you. Introduce yourself to the listeners for me, please.
My name is Esperanza Ortega. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. My sons, I have 3 sons, and they all have hemoglobin trait C.
Trait C.
Yes. I have one daughter who has it, but not as bad as my sons.
Okay. And what did you know initially? What has it been like with living with C trait for you and your family?
We've never received any education or support on it. We didn't even know it exists.
Yeah.
We just kind of went through the flow of the doctors explaining what was going on. My son Gino, hopefully he calls in, he was the worst off. He was hospitalized from the time he was born until 3 years old.
Yeah.
But they diagnosed him with so many other illnesses
and
diseases. They never said it was a hemoglobin trait.
Wow.
It was very difficult. It was so difficult to the point where, taking him to the hospital with nosebleeds was difficult because right away they call Child's Family Services because they don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, so we're gonna get into that. Yeah. You're gonna she's literally telling you that her son was sick, having issues with his health, and nosebleeds like that, and then she actually takes him to the hospital, and they were almost accusing you of child abuse.
Pretty much, without saying the word.
Right.
They were pretty much convicting me already in that waiting room.
So KC, you know, living with sickle cell, man, that hospital is a bring that mic up close to you. Bring that, pull the whole thing. Yeah, just pull it forward. Okay. We know in our community, man, the hospital experience is one of the number one topics and concerns that our community living with sickle cell has. You know, what do you want to say about the hospital experience, man, and being accused of something?
Well, again, when you have this disease, you have some very painful experiences which require some very heavy pain medication. And sorry, we don't have the mic close.
There you go.
Here we go. All right. And that requires, you know, very strong pain medication. And when you go into emergency rooms telling them that you're in pain and that you need something for the pain, you know, very often you're judged as being someone who's seeking a high. And,
yeah, so either the parents are getting accused of something, right, or the patient's getting accused of something. Yeah. We're going to talk about that later too. But I just want, you know, you can Google the hemoglobin C trait, and when you look at it, it's really parallel as far as the awareness, parallel to sickle cell trait, because if you carry the A gene and your mate carries the C gene, there's a 1 in 4 chance. You know, if you both carry that AC, that there's a 1 in 4 chance that you can pass that gene to the child. So just like sickle cell trait, it's pretty much the same information. I'm looking at the same information as far as the awareness. The 1 in 4 chance that you can actually pass the C trait, and the mate can pass the C trait, so your baby can have hemoglobin C, which is the disease for the C trait. So it's really no different as far as how it's inherited. So we were talking about the inherited part of it, which is, I mean, it's common because that's how genes are inherited. You know, we don't know what genes we're going to pass to our children, hair color, eyes, you know, things like that. So even with the C trait, you can pass that A or C to that child. Yeah. Were you aware that you had the C trait yourself?
I wasn't. I was never diagnosed with anything. It was always, I was anemic, take vitamins, take your iron. I was never diagnosed.
Yeah.
But when I was pregnant with Gino, there was a lot of complications.
Yeah.
But they never diagnosed us with anything. And what I did receive was a letter when he was born.
Ah.
That one letter
that's
you
from
get,
the health department, yeah.
Saying, you know, your son was born with sickle cell, and they give you this variety of ethnicity, and I'm like, that cannot be my son.
Yeah.
Because it's not in our family. But after looking it up and researching, it does.
Yeah.
And being Latina, and it is in our culture too.
Yeah. Again, when you look at C trait, it says, you know, the West African descent. You know, so when you look at sickle cell trait, you're looking at African Americans were number 1, but Hispanic community is number 2 with that gene. So there's got to be that bloodline. So the awareness is you cannot go by skin color.
No, you can't.
You got to go and get tested to find out what type of genes you carry, and that way you can know, you know, who you are, what you're living with, and then be informed, you know, to be able to share that information, especially when it comes to creating a family and dating and things like that. Because again, when you have children, we don't get to choose the genes that we pass on. Wow. I mean, when you got that letter, what were you thinking?
I honestly thought it was a mistake. I was like, no, they made a mistake. Like always, they're just sending you all this information. That was probably the first month I realized something was different with Gino, and I took him into the emergency room because he was just acting weird. He wasn't walking, he wasn't moving around like
a normal, like a baby would.
And that's when it all started, was when I took him to the emergency room. It just so quick that they said that he had fluid in the brain, and it was just like they took the child away from me, my son, and started doing all these tests on him.
Yeah.
And they didn't even know what was going on. And this went on for a few years, just constantly poking him and diagnosing him with different diseases and he didn't even have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it took 3 years before one doctor actually said what it was. But he suffered. My son still suffers, and he's 22. So.
Yeah, I talked to Gino on the phone, and he was mentioning the nosebleeds. Like, give us some of the symptoms that you experienced.
Well, when he was about 5 months, he had a really bad nosebleed, and it was clots, and he just filled up the whole pillow.
Yeah.
Like, the pillow was just covered in blood, and I didn't understand what was going on. So that's when I took him to the emergency room, and they thought I hit my son.
Yeah.
If his temperature goes a little bit too high, he'll start bleeding. If he's too active, he'll start bleeding. And it's like non-stop bleeding. It's just so thin, and it just starts pouring out.
Yeah.
In his bones, his joints, he has problems with his joints. In winter, he can't really do much because it feels like, he says it feels like his joints lock up.
We know about winter, huh?
Yeah.
My man KC was in Chicago living with SC and was like, he had to get out of there. So
yeah, so we used to wrap his legs up and his body up and do what we can because we didn't understand what was going on. And then he would grow these bacteria in his joints that would stop his legs from folding.
Yeah.
He could catch anything. It was like I had to protect him. We used to call him the baby in the bubble.
Yeah.
Because you sneeze, he would catch something right away. But even till this day, he has 2 children that actually have hemoglobin as well.
That's C trait as well.
It did.
So he passed the C trait to his.
Pass it on.
And so, you know, I wish Dr. Bailey was here because she's more of the expert in this conversation. But as described, when we talk about people living with sickle cell SC, that C gene, we describe it as it's crystallizing. Like literally, it just crystallizes. So you look at my man KC here, who has sickle cell SC. So he's living with them 2 genes that he inherited, one from each parent. The S gene mutates, and the other C gene crystallizes. So you got 2 things going on in his body. So can you imagine what the one gene is doing to a person?
But I could actually see what he goes through.
Yeah.
You know, he has to give up. He was training for MMA fighting. He had to give that up.
Yeah.
He loves boxing. He loves fighting. He can't do that. He can't play sports because they don't understand why he's bleeding.
Yeah.
But the MMA fighting was okay because they were like, go ahead and bleed.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
It's part of training.
Exactly.
But he has a difficult time. He really does. He lives in Arizona, and you know it's hot out there. But he says it's not as bad as here. If he was living out here, he would constantly be bleeding for different weathers.
Right.
But it affects our bodies. And my other son, I honestly believe it affects his learning disability as well, because of all the illnesses he gets.
I actually did a show about sickle cell disease, and we talked about the mental aspect of it, about how those inherited genes, lack of oxygen to the brain, all that stuff affects the body, and we don't really look at that, but it does affect the learning ability as well.
It does, but your doctors here, even to this day, will never just say, this is what's going on with you, Gina, this is what's going on, Esperanza, this is a treatment you could have. They don't acknowledge that they have hemoglobin C trait. They don't. They just pass it on. Like, we used to go in and say he had a blood disorder, and they washed their hands. They didn't want no part of it.
What?
It was like, okay, has he been tested for AIDS? Have you been tested with AIDS?
Yeah, they want to dance around it.
They want to dance around it, not understanding it because he's bleeding. They don't want to touch him.
Yeah.
And
what do you think? What do you think it is? Do you really think it's because of your the way you look as your background, that they don't think that your family could have a inherited gene disorder?
They think I'm out of my mind when I say it. They're like, well, are you Hispanic? And I'm like, yes, I am. My father is Puerto Rican and Italian. My great grandfather is Italian and Puerto Rican. So it's there. I mean, you don't know your whole ancestries.
Right.
You don't know. And doctors and nurses, they just don't want to educate themselves on it. I'm not speaking on all of them.
Yeah. But it seems to be a common factor.
I mean, don't jump the gun and say, this is what your son has. I mean, they even said to the point where he had leukemia.
Wow.
And we were going from there, and he even had a spinal
tap and all that?
Yes.
Wow.
And it took 3 years before that, and now we just live with it.
What do you want to say to the community, the listeners, the parents, the moms who are dealing with this same type of issue and are discovering that it could be some type of gene? Or
at first, if you do have a child, and you do receive that letter that says your child has
yes.
a sickle cell, take that letter in to your pediatrician and have them test them for any other trait.
If it has C trait, if you whatever that letter says, make sure you go and take that and do some research. Don't fold it away and put it in the drawer.
Yeah, or don't throw it away thinking it was a mistake, because I think that's what I did.
Yeah. Let me see who's on the line here. You live at What's the Count?
Yes, this is Gino.
Gino,
That's my baby.
how you doing, Gino?
That's my
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Hey, we're doing good. Your mom's over here like, that's my baby. That's my baby. Hey,
Thank
Gino,
you.
man, thanks for taking some time out. I know you got kind of busy, so I won't keep you too long. Just introduce yourself to the listeners, man, and just tell them who you are, man.
Yeah, I'm Gino. I'm 24, and I've been dealing with the hemoglobin disease for a while already.
Yeah.
So it's really hard on me sometimes, just, having to deal with the nose bleeding and everything, and just kind of holds me down a little bit. Kind of keeps me away from proceeding kind of more in life, but other than that, just kind of cope with it.
Yeah. What do you remember growing up as a little kid, man, and having these nosebleeds and having your health, going to the doctor? What do you remember about that?
Just bleeding a lot, not being able to control it, just having to stay in the bathroom probably for about a good hour or so, just trying to cope with the bleeding. And I remember just bleeding a lot.
Yeah, he bled a lot. I mean, he would get clogs where he would have to choke it up and spit it out.
Yeah, I would have to, in order to stop, I would have to, kind of spit up a noogie, kind of like a bloody noogie. And after that, it'll kind of stop. So.
I'm gonna ask this question because it's part of the awareness.
Yeah.
Do you know if you have C trait? Do you have AC, or do you know if you have the C disease, like two genes of the C?
We were
do
only
you
told
know?
once that he had hemoglobin C trait.
Okay.
After that, we never received any more information, and I don't believe he's been tested further than that.
There's a test that you can ask your hematologist, or go to your doctor and tell them you want to have a electrophoresis test, and that'll give them the panel. It'll be a screening panel for all the different types of red blood cell conditions, and so you may want to just revisit that, because I mean, I'm not a doctor, but the severity of how it sounds that you have that, that you could. It's possible that there could be another gene that wasn't identified back then, and it happens a lot that I've noticed in this advocacy work. So
yes, so that's something I should do, because even now I'm thinking if it's generic, because my son, he's actually bleeding too sometimes, and he'll be running around, and then he'll just be bleeding. So that's something I should follow up on.
And they can tell you how much of that C traits that you have. Because if you have AC, then you could be, 60-40. You could have more C trait than the A trait, or you could have a high level of C trait versus I have sickle cell trait AS, so my S is 40% of my red blood cells. So I'm 60-40 with my A and S. So my A is 60, my red blood cells for the CS trait is 40. So you when you go to the doctor, they can actually do a breakdown of your blood work and tell you how much of that C trait that you have, because if you could have a high number, which is causing that secondary complications.
They never advised us to do anything further.
Yeah.
Like I said, that was one time, and he goes to the doctor and he has to explain over and over.
Yeah.
I used to carry his medical records, and let me tell you, it was like a dictionary. But I had to carry his medical records for the longest time until he was old enough to explain on his own.
Yeah.
But we've never furthered the testing or anything, because, like I said, he's already in his 20s with his children. So now we're trying to. Yeah,
you can ask for the electrophoresis test, man, and like I said, I'll help you out with that, and they can tell you how much. The quantity of your C gene as well. So there's some things that you want to find out, man. It's very important. We don't think about our genes and health wise.
We don't.
And especially being very active and everything is kind of hard for me too.
Yeah, he
sports and everything, football, all that cardio and everything, running around, fighting and all that. It's just really.
Well, you got to remember that that C gene is a red blood cell. It affects the red blood cells, so that's your oxygen. You know, that's protein and the oxygen. And if your C gene gets triggered, then like I was sharing with your mom, it crystallizes.
Yeah.
So when you have that secondary issue of it crystallizing, it could be the nosebleeds, it could be, you know, all that stuff that happens to his body.
That's something we're going to do now that we're going through the process right here with you.
Yeah.
Bringing awareness to this to us as well. Living with it for so long, we're going to start the testing again and make sure he's getting.
Yeah, definitely, and especially if your kids have it.
Yeah, it's
you know,
passing on.
There's the information right there, the awareness, man. Because now you got to make sure that your kids. My other guest here, KC, is living with 2 genes. He's living with sickle cell trait and C gene, which is they say is a milder case of sickle cell disease, but he's gonna let you know that that's not the case because for some reason that C gene gets downplayed.
It does.
In the conversation in the community, that the C gene is just mild. It's just mild.
No.
Wow.
The living through it,
yes.
It's not mild.
Yeah.
It's really affecting us in the way we live. So we really need to bring it out.
Gino, what do you want to say to the listeners, man? For those guys, those men and women out there who are possibly dealing with something that you're dealing with, man, is there something you want to encourage them to, you know, to?
Yeah, just proceed and keep on going forward. Don't let it stop. You know, just proceed what you want to do in life, and this thing is just a little thing. Just overcome it and just go on forward.
Yeah. And me and Gino talked offline the other day, and he's like, you know, there's people don't think about, even in being in the MMA world, that there's so many other jobs and positions that you can have versus just being in the ring. You got commentating, you could be a referee, you know, there's so many other different things, aspects of the MMA world. You know, I told him we do a sports show here that I would love to have him, you know, call in every now and then to give us some highlights on the MMA world, you know, and get him involved with that.
Yeah,
since that's such a passion.
It is. It is a passion that it's really sad to see him have to let go.
Just like I told you too, like I got into the boxing because I was doing the MMA for a while, and you know the gloves are kind of smaller and stuff. So when I got hit, it was a little bit more impact. So I said I was going to do the boxing because I thought it was going to be softer on my face. But it never did.
But either way, it was blood, huh?
It was just blood.
Yep, it was bloody.
But his coaches kept saying, "Go for it, just keep going," because blood is part of the game. So just go. But it was kind of difficult.
Yes.
All right, Gino, man. Thank you so much for calling in, man. I appreciate you, and I look forward to helping you find out what's going on with your genes, man.
And I appreciate you guys, and thank you for giving me the time to talk to you guys, and I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you.
Bye, mijo.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. This is WDC Radio. I'm your host. I'm WDC. Again, we're talking about the C trait and how it's impacted this family here. The awareness is important.
It is.
It's key.
It is. It's the number one key.
Okay, so we'll be right back. KC, man, you ready, man?
I'm ready, brother. I'm so excited.
All right, so WDC Radio, we'll be right back. Hey, you can catch us. If you got to walk away, go to TuneIn Radio, go to Live 365, go to iTunes. You can catch us in the car streaming. You know, when you're on your cell phones or your tablets, you can catch us streaming live. Or if you're in one of these cities here, Washington, D.C., New York, Atlanta, Oakland, D.C., we're streaming live right there. So catch us there, WDC Radio, LA Talk Live, for more than just talk.
This program is provided with funding from Mass Therapeutics, sponsors of the EPIC study, a clinical trial for sickle cell disease. For more information, please visit www.theepicstudy.com.
Hey, shout us out. What's the count? I'm your host. I am WDC. Tune in to WDC Radio on LA Talk Live every Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for sickle cell trait awareness, lupus, bullying, mental health, and all different aspects of life. So tune in to WDC Radio right here on LA Talk Live. Also, you can listen to us on iTunes, Live 365, YouTube, and Ustream. And don't forget Apple TV and Roku right here on LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk. Shout us out. What's the count?
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
On LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid
And no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Chef D Nice of Catering by D Nice, and I'm inviting you to join us each and every Sunday at 2 p.m. for the Veterans Day live radio show. Join us as we provide info that will help all military personnel, so don't forget to tune in to Veterans Day Live every Sunday at 2 p.m. exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio, R&B, Radio Flag, TuneIn Radio, Live 365, AHA Radio, TiVo Radio, and Apple TV Radio. Or just watch and listen directly at LATalkLive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening and viewing pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
You're listening to the Van Eric Rock Show. I'm your host, Van Eric, daily, Monday through Friday, here only on LA Talk Live. We're more than just talk.
Hi, I'm Ro Williams, and I would like to invite you to join GospelRhythms.com every Sunday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our show, GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio. Join us as we celebrate Christians around the world in all genres of entertainment, as well as highlight interest stories on men and women who are making a difference and impacting their community. So don't forget to tune in to GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio, exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes under R&B or watch us live on Ustream TV. We are reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is GospelRhythms.com Talk Live Radio on LATalkLive.com. We're more than just talk. We're heaven's party here on earth.
All right, welcome back to WDC Radio. I'm your host. I am WDC. Make sure you tune in every Saturday right here, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on WDC Radio. The show is going wild. I'm going to be talking about lupus, bullying, mental health. You know, it's a community outreach show. My conversation is sickle cell trait, but I understand that there are other platforms out there as human beings that affect us in the community, other chronic illnesses. Here we're talking about C-trait. It's like our cousin. I mean, you know, there's so many different things out there that's affecting our health. So I'm making sure that I'm going to use this platform to bring awareness to these other health complications. So if you have any questions right now, make sure you call in 323-473-3100 if you want to call in right now. Yeah, right there below the screen. You can see that in the lower third right there. So if you have more questions, please give me a call. We got another half an hour left in the show. So my other guest here, first of all, let me acknowledge you. Thank you for being bold and brave and coming on the show and sitting with us and sharing your family's information and your story and how it's impacting you. And I'm sure you're not the only one out there.
No, I'm not.
You know, that's having these complications and, you know, searching for some answers. So
yeah. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you're doing this because until you mentioned it, I wasn't.
Yeah, we were like, hey, I think we need to talk.
I was like, did you just say what I know? But
yeah.
No, I appreciate being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I will continue and have my son tested. And
yeah, I'll work with you on that and
Please.
to make sure to get some definite questions answered so we can get some information for you guys.
Thank you.
For sure, thank you. So the other part of this segment is going to be for my near and dear community, the sickle cell community. I have Mr. KC right here who's going to introduce himself. Man, introduce yourself to the
Hi, Farron. Thank you again for having me. And my name is Ken Carson. I am new to LA. Just moved here in November.
Yeah.
And I've been really, really blessed to meet Farron and gain a new perspective on the difficulties of the sickle cell community as having, although I have my own personal experience. And
so with that personal experience, let's go back in time a little bit. When you were growing up and able to understand that you were going to be living with sickle cell SC, what do you remember your parents telling you about this disease? Bring the mic closer for me.
I'm sorry. Unfortunately, my experience was dealing with a lot of ignorance.
Yeah.
There's really a lack of knowledge. And like you said, sometimes I think we go into a survival type of mode. I come from a family of 7 children. My mother, raised us all with the help of my grandmother and my aunt. My father was kind of in and out, but so there wasn't really a conversation in the family about anything other than, is Kenny sick today or is he not sick today?
Right.
And so again, the information from the doctors, again, during that time period as a child and coming through the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Even the medical community was still learning about sickle cell disease.
Right.
And as a young person, all I could do is deal with the day-to-day aspects of my disease and the limitations that it placed on my life. And
you say you had 7 siblings, so out of the 7, how many are that living with sickle cell?
2 of us have the sickle cell C trait.
Yeah.
Or the sickle cell
SC.
SC.
Yeah.
Yes. And an older sister and myself.
Okay.
And my older sister, her sickle C was, I think, what they expected from sickle C. Was very mild. She may have a sickle crisis once, twice a year.
But she just had the C trait by itself, or she had SC as well?
I think she has SC as well.
As well, okay.
Right. And as for me, I had the more severe case where I was having a crisis every 2 months, every 3 months, and spending a lot of time in the hospital in the emergency room.
What was that like? And how old were you back then? I mean, you said the 60s?
In the 60s.
So what was going on in the 60s, man?
When I was a child, I remember. I've been having crisis since my earliest memories.
Yeah.
I can remember being 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
Having sickle crisis, and going to the doctor, and them saying he's having Charlie horses.
Oh yeah, that's common.
Along those lines. And
Charlie horses, huh?
Right, and they would certainly, deal with it, in the best way that they could, the doctors at the time. And But again, there was just no knowledge.
Wow.
And then by the time I was, I think, 8 years old, they finally figured out what it was and had developed a treatment for it, which is basically the same treatment they use now, which is fluids, oxygen, pain medication, and rest. And so
when you were a kid growing up in the 60s, were you able to share with your friends that you had this disease? Like, what was your relationship with your friends, man?
That was another one of the really difficult areas because, again, you're really limited in the things that you can do once they started to notice that exertion was one of the things that could cause you to trigger a crisis.
Right.
You're not allowed to play sports and you're not allowed to play with the other kids as much. And so you get a kind of a reputation as the sick kid. Yeah. And
how did you take that in, man, when you heard those kind of conversations about people talking about you? How did you deal with that as a...
Again, it's a very difficult thing for a young child to deal with, trying to maintain some type of, what's the word I'm looking for, where you're trying to just, have an identity of yourself,
of course,
about who you are, and people are putting you down, you're
on top of that.
Self-esteem, I guess
yeah,
is what
exactly.
I was looking for. My self-esteem was always being attacked by other kids.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I knew how to fight. So, I could kind of correct people.
That way, that was your outlet.
That was my certainly. But again, even going through school and things like that, and not being able to participate in sports like my other friends were.
Yeah.
It's just kind of depressing and just really hard to deal with for a young person.
Did you have an outlet? Did you draw? Did you watch cartoons? Like, since you couldn't play at that level, what did you do besides boxing?
I fought a great deal. That was one of my outlets, and I would say girls were a distraction for me.
Yeah.
And certainly spent some time. I was more of a social person.
Okay.
As opposed to the athletes and all that. I just had I had a good group of close friends, and more than anything, in my family.
Yeah.
Really, really. The best medicine I ever got for my sickle cell was the love that I got from my family.
Yeah.
And the support that I got from them.
And we know that's very important. It's very important. Did you feel like, even though you were getting that love, that you felt like a burden sometimes on your family? Because if you got in a crisis, all attention was on you or your sister, like.
Yeah, and again, when you're in a family of 7, with limited resources and a single parent, you certainly want to be a contributing factor, and that's something that's taking away from anything. And so there was a lot of times where I felt like I was a burden to my mother.
Yeah.
But my mother was so amazing. I mean, again, if you can imagine 2 children with sickle cell disease. My brother has cerebral palsy.
Oh, wow.
And my mother just,
she birthed some warriors.
Yeah, she's just an amazing woman.
She birthed some warriors.
Was able to really deal with all of those issues and keep us all on course and really loved us and helped us to become great people.
What was the hospital experience like in the 70s, man? I know we hear about it now, as advocating the last 5-6 years, but back in that time frame.
Back in that time frame, again, I was really blessed to have some very caring medical professionals who I dealt with at that time. And so as a teenager, from my age of like 10 to like, let's say maybe 17, I had the same doctor.
Okay.
And this guy just cared.
Yeah.
It was really, really, there wasn't a whole lot that they did in the way of educating, not a whole lot that they did in the way of, helping my family or anything, but at least I knew when I went in that this doctor was going to be waiting for me.
Yeah.
And so that was a great help. But again, the lack of education for the families dealing with this, and me and my sister both, I mean, just complete ignorance. We're just really in the dark about. And again, I'm just so surprised with some of the things that I'm hearing now about the C trait I had never heard of before, and things like that. And so, growing up in the 70s, it was really more of a survival mode type of thing than anything.
Now we hear in the medical field that the C trait, the SC, is a milder case. Let the listeners know some of the secondary complications that this C trait has done to your body, man. You're 55, right?
I'm 55.
Now let them know in these 55 years what SC has done to KC.
Well, let's start with sickle cell retinopathy, which is a condition where the sickle cells that mutate have a tendency also to clot up in smaller blood vessels, like the blood vessels in the eye.
Right.
And they cut off, the oxygen to that portion of the retina.
Right.
And then the eye actually compensates by building newer blood vessels, but they're weak and they rupture.
Right.
And you get bleeding. And so back in the 80s when this happened to me, they used a laser to take out those new blood vessels, but that laser was really harsh, and it created scarring on the retina. And so I had retinal detachments. I had 4 of those and 4 retinal detachment surgeries. And after that, they just gave up on the eye, and so
tell them about the eye today,
blind
man.
in my left eye.
Tell them again so they understand.
That yes, this is something that is common amongst people with sickle cell disease.
You lost your eye.
I lost the vision in my left eye, and there's a 50% chance that I will lose the vision in my other eye.
Yeah.
That is something that, I have complications in this eye. I've had laser surgeries. Fortunately, as technology progresses, the lasers have gotten better, so I'm not receiving the damage to my eye from the lasers.
Right.
But also, in the 80s, they didn't test for hepatitis C in blood transfusions.
Right.
I've had numerous blood transfusions, and I contracted hepatitis C, which has led to my having cirrhosis of the liver, and now receiving treatment for the hepatitis C, which they couldn't do before because they didn't have the medication to treat it that would not interact negatively upon my affect the sickle cell negatively.
Of course.
But now they have a new medication for hepatitis C, which that they have me on, which I hope is going to at least cause my liver not to be damaged anymore.
Right.
Also, these sickle cells, again, anything that is fed by oxygen, which is all the cells in your body.
Exactly. Blood flows everywhere.
Right? It flows everywhere, so it affects your bones. I have what's called avascular necrosis of the bone, which is in my legs. I had a fracture in my left femur. I had to have a rod put in my left femur to prevent.
So you're walking with a rod right now, and
yeah, in my left
see what I'm
femur.
saying? Again, it's that serious that this conversation. I mean, this is one of the reasons why our community is fighting for this to be in the forefront. There's so many. There's so many. You don't want to compare to other diseases, but again, this is happening in our community. And where is the information? Where is the awareness? Where is the treatment? Where is all these things for people like he's 55? Yeah. Back in his day, they probably chalked them off at 10, 11 years old. But now people are living longer because of medication and treatment, which you're going to talk about what's actually helping you in a second, is that people are living longer now. And so there's a disconnection between pediatric to adult care because now they're living longer. And now, but the body has been breaking down for years.
Exactly.
Go ahead, take that away, man.
Exactly, and again, I have nerve damage in my legs because the nerves are fed by blood, and they're dying, and there's nothing that you can do about that. And again, the long-term effects of having been given pain medication and serious drugs all your life.
Yeah.
Addiction issues that you have to deal with,
right?
From the chronic pain that is caused by all of these other secondary issues.
Exactly.
And so you deal with so many different issues when you have this disease, and depending upon the severity of the disease, I am blessed to be alive right now. And again, as you mentioned, there's a medication that they found was very helpful with sickle cell disease. It's called hydroxyurea.
Yeah.
And it is probably the reason why I'm still alive.
Yeah.
I have to say
you accredit to
I
that.
really do.
Besides the man above for
right,
creating that,
creating that, giving the doctors the
yeah,
wisdom
exactly.
To find
to
out
that,
that
out.
We could use this for sickle cell too, because they primarily were using it for cancer treatment.
Right. And so people, I did a show on hydroxyurea a while back, and what it does, it regenerates the fetal hemoglobin. So when you're born, you have a certain amount of fetal hemoglobin, and as you start to get older, it goes away, and then your normal red blood cell genes take over. Some people still have fetal hemoglobin, but that medication actually re-triggers it, and so produces healthier
hemoglobin, right?
Yeah, the fetal hemoglobin.
So that when at least the blood cells that aren't mutating or crystallizing are really producing more.
Healthier.
Actually collecting more oxygen when you go through the lungs and helping your body to stay healthier that way. And so it's very fortunate for that. But again, there was a time when the slightest cold or fever or anything meant a trip to the hospital.
Yeah. So you had to know your triggers. I mean,
yes,
you
my
knew what.
triggers,
You know.
right? I knew that I couldn't go swimming in the summertime. You know, I jump into a pool of cold water, and bam,
Done.
I'm on my way to the hospital. You know, I couldn't. I really just couldn't allow myself to get dehydrated.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that can trigger it. Or again, you know, any cold, fevers, anything like that triggers.
How about your diet? We know that in a lot of health, diet is important, man. So, how did you?
Again,
In the 60s and 70s, man.
I grew up in a African American family, so you know about
y'all had some good food, huh?
Yeah, good food, right? And my mom is a cook, and so you know there was never any specific diet plan.
Yeah.
That was suggested for this disease.
And not to say that that's wrong,
right?
But then again, if we know that food fuels us, then maybe some of that food is not healthy for that person who's living with a chronic illness, that you got to eat something, you know, to the more positive, healthier side of it.
Right. And again, that really lends to the fact that we're not given that kind of information.
Right.
And we're not being taught that. And it needs to be taught from day one. We need to have programs that are teaching mothers who have given birth to children with sickle cell disease, you know, the things that they need to be doing to create a better life for their child.
Definitely.
You know,
I see that. I see that on social media. You know, again talking about diet and you giving the kids soda. You see, oh, I'm drinking soda, and it's like, well, and then you see a few days of a crisis. Like, what do you expect? like why are you surprised if you're drinking sodas and eating these type of foods that a crisis is not going to happen? Like, but we don't think that. You know, we just want the environment
to
has
be happy and to, you know.
Anything you want to? I know you're listening to a story. Anything you want to say or share or comment?
Well, I'm receiving a lot of information, and I thank you for that. I'm just keep thinking of my son, things I should have done. Maybe I should have kept taking him to the doctors, or I mean, I do know he eats well.
Yeah.
But with myself, you know, with females and carrying the trait C,
yeah,
we do get heavier monthly periods, and we'll get, you know, cysts and a lot of things carry on with women, and they don't understand what's going on with their bodies because it starts so young.
Right.
You could develop endometriosis.
Exactly.
So there's a lot that we need to take into consideration.
Those are the secondary complications that gene is gonna, you know.
And those are things that are affecting myself and my daughter and my sister, as well as my mother. 3 months ago, I just had a full hysterectomy.
Oh, wow.
And my mother had one when she was 50, and my sister had one when she was 30.
Wow.
So those are things you want to start testing once you get your first OBGYN.
Yeah.
You know, you go in there and educate yourself. It's education.
I don't know why, you know, just health and wellness is important, and I think it just gets overlooked with so much survival mode, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
You know, we're in such a work mode, survival mode, and all this, and you know, I got to eat now and drink, you know, and it's like the body, though.
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
Again, it's amazing that, you know, at 55, I don't have more knowledge about sickle cell than I do.
Yeah.
But again, it's living a life of survival and just trying to get around it and trying to have some semblance of normality in your life. You know, the sickle cell dominates so much that you just really grasp hold of whatever normality you can have, and you just
hold on to that.
You know, I mean, there are a lot of psychological effects of sickle cell.
Oh yeah, we definitely taking that on, man.
Sociological effects.
Have to.
Psychosociological effects of sickle cell also.
Let's see, Van.
No, I just wanted to, when I had opportunity to speak on two things, just add to that. Looking back, listening to both your guests talking, made me think about the children that I hung out with as a child and why they couldn't play, you know, stickball and stuff like that. Or they tried running with us, and you know they was out of breath all the time, and stuff like that. We never made fun of them, you know, not like as tease them, like, you can't catch me, look at you all out of breath, you know, I mean, not knowing. The second thing, and y'all did touch on this a little bit, why do you believe that the way that the medical profession is today doesn't know about sickle cells and everything that goes along with that? And like you said, when a person, a human being comes in their office, in this hospital, they get all crazy, like, oh my God, what's going on? You know what I mean?
You know, I'm just gonna. This is only my point of view. My point of view is looking back in time, just going back in time. It is a black disease, you know, and we own that. But you have to look at I call them the inherited conversations. There's been conversations about sickle cell from centuries ago that are still being passed on today. And then you look in the medical books and the nurses going to school, and there's maybe about a couple of pages about sickle cell, and then that's all they get. And their whole rest of the time that they're in this medical field, they get a paragraph. So if you're not a hematologist and specializing in that field, then are you going to remember that?
I think it's because in our communities, we automatically know that this belongs only to the African American community. Yeah. It doesn't affect the Hispanic. But we don't know our generations. We don't know our ancestry, our health of our great grandfather. We don't know beyond that. So we don't know. You know?
And not only that, and being that this is particularly supposed to be an Afro-American illness, now the interracial relationships,
exactly.
You know, but with that, now that's why it is affecting other races now more than back then when they would say it was just black people's.
The interracial been going on a long time. It's just got popular. Yeah. But back then it was just banned. Like you better not I better not catch you with that. Yeah, I better not catch you with her over there.
Yeah, it was taboo and all that.
The kids were still being born. But then like she said, you got to look at your ancestry. You got to look at where your bloodline came from. And you just can't go one level back. You got to go a few levels back to see where that Hispanic family inherited that bloodline from,
or the descents of Thomas Jefferson. You know he liked to dip in the chocolate.
So when you say why isn't the conversation, I just believe that when you look at life, an example. I'm gonna use that example. You look at KC here. You have a black male. That's one conversation in the world by itself. Just being a black male. Then you got glasses. Now you got a conversation about KC being a black male with glasses, which is a whole conversation by itself. Then you add sickle cell to it. So you got all these different conversations going on about this one person, and you're not focusing on his health, his life, what's being impacted with his life. They look at his skin color and his glasses. Oh, well, yeah. And that's as far as they get.
That's as far as it gets.
That's as far as the conversation goes, because it's superficial. It's just a surface conversation.
It's the story. They don't get the facts.
Exactly. It's the story.
Person,
it's the story.
In the story.
You hit it right there.
Exactly. Than to actually get the facts.
And that's how we need to live. If you live in the facts, then there is no story about the facts. It's just the facts.
It's just the facts.
The facts. And your facts are your facts. So they can't discount you because you're saying that you're living with this and this is how I feel. That's a fact. Because that's yours. That's your life experience. So they can't come and say, well, no, you're not. You're faking. Because that's your facts. Of course. Because the story that goes with living with sickle cell. There's a story.
Us being light skinned and me walking in and
oh yeah, you're not gonna get you don't meet the criteria.
I don't. So they think, oh no, you need to go upstairs to the psychologist. It's affecting us.
C-trait? What's that? Nah, you're
wrong. You're incorrect.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot. It's a lot of things that, you know, for me, I had to take a step back and really look at, because all this information, this is not brand new.
No.
This is information that's been going on for years, 105 years, you know, for sickle cell and these other genes, but the conversation is still the same. So how do we interrupt that conversation to give, you know, people like yourself and KC their facts, so they can rewrite some of this stuff, because some of this stuff is old.
It is. It's all textbook, and you have to get it straight from the person who's suffering.
Yeah.
You have to get it from us, and we're the ones who have to educate others. because it's just, it honestly is. It's two different lifestyles
Yeah.
going on, but we're suffering in the same point.
Same life, yeah, same exactly.
Absolutely.
You know, what's your point of view, as far as dating? You know, the I have a Stop Sickle Sex campaign. You know, what's your point of view on the Stop Sickle Sex? I kind of shared it with you.
Again, I think there's so much beauty in the simplicity of that Stop Sickle Sex, and the stop being the awareness aspect of it, and the sickle being the knowledge of the actual disease.
Yeah.
And
the sex is the prevention.
The sex is the prevention, absolutely.
Yeah.
And all I can say is, from my perspective, is that I remember my parents' faces when, as a child, I would be in tears.
Yeah.
Non-stop, and there's nothing they could do about it. You know, they're sitting there looking at their child suffering.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see any other parents experience that. You know, nobody wants to see their child suffer. And so the Stop Sickle Sex, you know, is just being responsible.
That's all it is.
About,
man.
You know, our relationships, and the fact that, you know, if you produce a child who has, you know, some of these genes that you're talking about, they're going to suffer.
Yeah.
You know, and again, you know, my life has been, I mean, really, I haven't even shared, you know, the 10th of it all. Really, it's been horrible for most people. I mean, I'm a really blessed person, and I know that.
Yeah.
And so I've been able to, you know, come through it, you know, but I don't ever, I mean, I'm so happy that my son is only a carrier of the S gene.
Yeah.
Or the, what is it?
The S gene.
The S gene. But I just found out from Farron now that, you know, that's an issue.
Yeah.
You know, and so we want our children to be well and happy, and nobody wants to watch their child suffer. And so,
you know, there's a clause, and I was looking at it, even with sickle cell trait and just having the one copy of the gene, it says that, you know, there we shouldn't have a problem, or there usually isn't a problem. Well, language is important. So what does usually mean? That there's a chance. That there's a chance.
It's like 99%
yeah,
chance.
there's a
You're
chance.
1% all the time.
So again, language is so important. How they wrote these, you know, awareness campaigns and what they put in these textbooks. You know, you really have to pay attention to what you're reading and how you interpret it. Because again, if not the facts, I'm gonna make up a story about what I read right there, and I'm like, oh yeah, well they just said no, we just don't mate with another person.
The internet doesn't lie, remember?
Yeah, and the internet doesn't lie either.
Everything online is true.
Right.
Wikipedia, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
wouldn't have wrote it if it wasn't true.
Right. So what do you want to share? What do you want the world to know about sickle cell? SC, because
SC.
we know we hear that it's a mild case, and for some people it is a mild case, and some people don't. It doesn't affect them. Remember, sickle cell is an individual disease as well. So it's DNA. So my DNA, your DNA, and another person with SC DNA is probably not totally different. But for you living with SC, what do you want people to know about that, man? The world to know.
That it's avoidable. That, you know, again, I know that if my parents had a choice and knew that they had a choice of producing two children who were going to be dealing with the issues that me and my sister have dealt with, that they may have made a different choice.
Yeah.
If they had been aware of that fact and been given an opportunity to choose.
Yeah.
So I think, again, for me, I just want to see responsible reproduction in our communities and in the sickle cell communities. People awareness of where you're at with it, and
we're not saying.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and as far as anything else, also other than that, self-advocacy.
Yes.
Because you're not going to get the information from your doctor. You're not going to get it from.
You gotta go get it.
You gotta go get it, man.
And surround yourself with people who can help you get it.
Right.
Who's on that path.
Right.
And again, like you're saying, we're not saying that to not have children, you know, not to have sex or not. No, but a lot of families didn't get that choice. And so with the Stop Sickle Sex campaign, all we're doing is providing a choice. And if you still choose to have a family, then you have the resources, the information, you have the knowledge. And if that baby is born with the disease, then you're prepared.
Absolutely. And
that's all we really want. That's only reason I'm here every Saturday is so people in the future are prepared, really. That's only why I'm here. And to share these stories so people are aware that this is real. This is the real life. And if that's all I get to do, man, I'm happy doing that.
Farron, thank you so much, man. Again, you have blessed me with the knowledge that you've shared, and now that I'm in,
oh, you in?
People, man,
we got some work to do. We got some work to do, and I appreciate you being bold and coming on the show, man, and sharing your story. Esperanza, again, thank you. I look forward to helping find out what's going on with the seed trade.
Yes, help us with this, and I'll speak about it in our center and bring awareness to my community as well.
Definitely. Again, I want to thank you for tuning and listening in. This is WDC Radio. I'm WDC. Instagram, Twitter at IamWDC. Shouts out to my daughter SCTD. She'll be back on the show coming up with me before she goes back to school. She'll be here again live. So I love you, Deja. And follow her on Twitter at WDCONSCT as well. For more information about sickle cell trait, WDCONSCT.org. Also, the IB for Life campaign. Go to WDCSCT.org and find your identity, find your voice in this campaign. We got beads, the red, yellow, green, and black. If you've been educated through this campaign, you're a black bead. If you have any of the traits, C trait, sickle cell trait, you are the red bead. If you lost a loved one to the battle of sickle cell, then they represent the yellow bead. And if you're living with sickle cell, then you represent the green bead. So please go there and support the cause. We'll be hitting it hard in September as our Sickle Cell Awareness Month. So we'll be hitting it hard for September, but we just launched the campaign to bring awareness to sickle cell, all different aspects of it. So thank you for tuning in. Van, man, thank you, man, for being back there in the engineering for me, man. I appreciate you. Next Saturday, I'll be here, 4 p.m. Shout us out. What's the count?
Ago to WDC, and it's me, your man Curtis Blow, from Dr. James to Michael Jordan to Kevin Durant. Release the whole league of scoring. Wayne Wade down in Miami, making a name. I love this game. To the NBA Hall of Fame, slam dunks, alley-oops, and the give and go. Vince Carter, Superman, and my man Carmelo and Rondo over in Boston with the big three, captivating audiences across the country and ruling the world like LeBron the King. I say, man, Kobe sure has a lot of rings. I do my thing, not for the bling bling in the amount. It's the NBA Finals, so what's the count? So tell me what's the count? Had Jerry run a route and Montana throw it out. Atwater make him sober when the back try to bounce. So I'm flipping through.
Do you or does someone you know have sickle cell disease? Have you heard about the EPIC study? It's an international research study evaluating an investigational drug aimed at shortening the duration of painful crisis. And with over 50 sites in the US, there may be a site near you. To learn more and to find out if the EPIC study is right for you, visit www.theepicstudy.com.
Hey, shout us out. What's the count? I'm your host. I am WDC. Tune in to WDC Radio on LA Talk Live every Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time for sickle cell trait awareness, lupus, bullying, mental health, and all different aspects of life. So tune in to WDC Radio right here on LA Talk Live. Also, you can listen to us on iTunes, Live 365, YouTube, and Ustream. And don't forget Apple TV and Roku right here on LA Talk Live, where we're more than just talk. Shout us out. What's the count?